How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, my man. Do you disagree with the background?
I don't. I'm just enjoying the fact that someone other than me is talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it amazes me what a severe disconnect there is between the words in the Bible and the understanding of the Bible. Like I'm not a religious person at all, but I bought a Bible back when I was 23. I'm 60 now. And I bought it because I wanted to understand how to argue against it. And then what I realized, much to my surprise, is that almost everybody that claims that they live by the Bible doesn't know what's in it.
hmm
And I've always found that fascinating. And I mean, like little things. Not that this is a big deal, but the Bible never refers to what they eat in Genesis as an apple. They call it a fruit, right?
Yeah.
And even though that's a tiny example, there's so many examples like that where people like quote the Bible, but they stop at the quote and don't understand the meaning of it, like the story of Job or the story of Noah's Ark. Like I was on an app last year, and someone brought up, the Bible and God and all that stuff, and how God was a loving God, and I said, well, he drowned everybody on earth except a family of 8 in the story of Noah's Ark. So how does,
Yeah.
unaliving almost everyone on earth count as being
Yeah.
loving?
So you haven't heard the quote? You haven't heard the Bible verse? For God so loved the world
Yeah.
that he committed mass genocides and unalived all people on earth. Like it just follows.
Right.
It's true.
Right. Right. And what's funny is that after I finished saying that, she said, "Oh my God, I've never thought of that." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the problem is
Yeah.
that you have this guy in his beautiful flowing dress in front of a room every Sunday telling you what the Bible says, but not explaining the horror that it means. Like the story of Job
Yeah.
is a horrible story."
Yeah. It's like they. It's like, um, yeah. It's just like you're like it's the story of Job kind of reminds me of like you know how you had to dissect a frog back in like biology class. That's kind of what it reminded me of. It's like God and Satan were like trying to fuck with this thing that they
Yeah.
like God created. They were just like really interested in how they can fuck with it and make it the most fucked up thing that they could think. Like that's what it reminded me of. Like, and then when asked about it, God didn't have an actual answer. He didn't actually have a rational. He just be like, "Well, I created the earth, therefore I can
Right.
fuck
I
you
can do
up.
whatever I
Like
want
what?
for no
It's my
particular
toys.
reason.
I can do what I want."
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just like it's mine.
Yeah, and we found out that he was a gambling man. Like, oh, the Satan says, "Hey, God, I bet you that
Right.
I can turn Job," and he goes, "All right, let's do it." And he says, basically, do anything
Yeah.
you want to this fucker except kill him, and let's and here's the
Yeah.
really interesting point about Job is that what some believers will say is that, well, God restored everything back to Job, but that's not 100% true. I read this again just to make sure that it was right. All of the servants that he had were unalived, rather, and never came back. Never came back, right? So it's like, just to make a point, God was like, yeah, I'll wipe a few people out. What's the difference? As long as I win a bet against Satan. Wild stuff.
Pretty sadistic too.
Extremely
Yeah.
sadistic.
I don't know. Like you have to equivocate on what love means. If you say it's like all loving, right? What does it mean to love? Like, so like I would just ask, like, if you were a parent and your child has like some sort of genetic cancer or something like that, right? And there's like a perfect cure. It's like a fucking tablet that you have to take, and it's perfectly cured. It's just so easy, and the doctor has the ability, or maybe the parent is the doctor. Let's just say the parent is the doctor, right? And he can prescribe you this one pill that would end this genetic cancer that's going to cause you all this suffering and stuff like that, right? And it's cheap. It doesn't really cost you anything. It's so advanced that we have this like this perfect cure, right? You just decide, nah, I'm not going to. Like, would you say that that parent loves that child? Well, what do we mean by love? Love just sounds like I think what most people mean by love is, an unconditional commitment to the well-being of another person. Right now, obviously, giving that tablet to that child is going to contribute to their well-being. I think most people would accept that. So we would say like the parent withholding that tablet from that child is just going to be like not loving.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if they're going to say that that's not loving, then is God withholding that for that child also not loving, given that God also has that tablet?
Well, you can take it a step further and say, why did God allow for cancer? Because if everything is in his plan, there's a couple of questions that I have. First, why did you wait 300,000 years to enact this plan? Because we were around quite a long time as the current form that we're in as humans, roughly somewhere 200, 300,000 years. And you're telling me that for the first 298,000 years, with all of the graping and unaliving that was going on and all the sinful behavior and people eating shellfish and people wearing the wrong fabrics and people having premarital sex, God sat back and went, not yet. I'm not going to do anything yet. I'm not going to give them the instruction book until way, 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 way later. Like that doesn't make any sense.
And it does sort of beg the question, if all of these horrific things in life, diseases, famine, all that stuff, if that's part of God's plan, then are human efforts to combat those things and mitigate sufferings, violations, does that condemn them to hell?
Right? Yeah, because if they're
like God
if they
wanted you to have terminal, cancer and stuff like that.
Right. God wanted to make organisms that bore out of the eyes of children, and that's their sole purpose apparently in on Earth. Why? Why did you make that? Something like 18,000 children every day unalive from starvation. What kind of plan is that?
Yeah. You just got to trust the plan, bro. You just got to trust the plan.
That's what it is. When all else fails, let's have faith.
Just have faith. Like, it's just, like if you're going to say like, God doesn't intervene, like, and first of all, a lot of these people already believe that God intervenes sometimes, right? If somebody gets cured of cancer, it's a miracle. It was God. But like the person in the room next door, in the hospital room next door, like it didn't work out for them. Like, what's going on? Like, what?
Well, people want to be the hero of their own story, right? Like they want to glorify themselves. Like I had this person tell me this exactly, roughly 25 years ago. She was talking about, she was driving with her 3 children and it was icy and they were spinning and they didn't go off the cliff. What do you call that? And I said, I call that physics, right? But if you if you think that somehow that God saved you, then that's just egomania on your part.
Right.
Yeah. I had so like I grew up near Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. It was like and the church I went to, Christian House of Prayer, like a lot of military people there. So like a lot of preaching was around that and stuff like that. And a lot of people there were in the Iraq War and stuff. I just heard the preaching when I was a teenager. It was like, I heard like he preached about this guy who was in, I think he was in Fallujah, in fact. I'm not sure. But he preached about him saying that when he prayed the night before they went out into the field or whatever to do their patrols, there were insurgents that were shooting at them, and the bullets, the bullets, they just felt like pebbles bouncing off of him, right? And then like at that time I was like, I was Christian. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. But now I think about it, I'm like, wait, hold on, pause. I'm like, there's so many things that could, first of all, you got body armor on, right? So if I don't know, what did you feel anything? Like, I don't know what, maybe it was actually pebbles.
Yeah.
Maybe you were actually getting, because like you're in a fucking Humvee, you're at the top, like all that, like I'm a gunner and things like that. You're going through a bunch of rocks and stuff like that. Maybe it is actually fucking pebbles, or maybe the people there don't want you there and they're actually throwing rocks at you.
Right. Yeah, it could be a lot of factors. I mean, look, I had a brain tumor in 2012, and I had surgery. It was successful, obviously, and so many people were like, oh, thank God. And I was like, no, I thank my surgeon that has 30 years of experience in brain surgery, And again, why would I thank God for the tumor that he gave me?
Right.
And then they'll say, well,
nonsense God was working.
God gave you
the
surgeon.
Was it?
they'll say something like God gave you the surgeon. Like, wait, so he
Right.
violated the free will of the surgeon
Yeah.
and like
He blessed
he
him with
forced
his
him to be a
wisdom.
surgeon.
Yeah. And what was the point of all that? Why did I need the tumor? Like, what was the function of that? And like, you know, if you have a lesson that you want to teach me, why don't you just give me the lesson instead of giving me a tumor?
Just beam it into my head.
Right. Download it like I'm Neo in the fucking Matrix.
Like, bro.